and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello, everybody. Yes, sir, it's finally here.
That day has arrived again. All you need to say.
All right, welcome on in to another edition of Sayf At The Plate Sports Talk. I am your host, Clayton Sayfie, here on 89.9 WTHS Holland, the commercial-free voice of Hope College. Joining us later on in the show, coming up, is Fermin Duran, one of our recurring guests. He's going to help us break down the NFL season, and we're going to take a look back at college football over the weekend. Michigan State, and, of course, Hope College was in action as well. Well, another NFL season is coming up starting Thursday, meaning another season of excitement is going to be right around the corner. For us in the state of Michigan, it's another year of optimism, warranted or unwarranted, that we're hearing from fans, pundits, and others for the Detroit Lions as they kick off their season Sunday. For whatever reason, every offseason we hear about how every year is the year. With an established starting quarterback who was in MVP conversation a year ago, the Lions need not to worry at that position. But with a tough schedule and a defense that doesn't seem to be improved, there are many question marks. Nonetheless, the feeling of the unknown and the fact that anything can happen is what makes the dawn of a new season so exciting. So we're going to take a deep dive into previewing the Lions season later on in the show on our NFL preview show. Also, coming up, we'll take a look back at the weekend that was in college football. Of course, as we said, Michigan State, and our very own Hope College Flying Dutchman. But right on the other side of the break will be our Hope Athletics Blitz. We're going to break down and talk about our fall sports that just started action over the weekend and preview what they have coming up. So stay with us here on 89.9 WTHS Holland, the commercial-free voice of Hope College. This is Sayf At The Plate Sports Talk. I'm your host, Clayton Sayfie. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at Sayf At The Plate. That's spelled S-A-Y-F. So go ahead and do that. You can follow all of our coverage here. We're going to have our Hope Athletics Blitz right now. Starting with men's and women's cross country, the men took third at the Vanderbilt Invitational over the weekend, while the women took first place. So congratulations to both teams. They're both going to be at the Ohio Wesleyan Invitational on Saturday. The men's golf team finished in second place over the weekend at the Olivet Lou Collins Classic. Cade Hoeksema and Daniel Setesari scored a Hope team low at 144 over their 2 rounds to lead the Dutchmen to that second-place finish. They'll play a match at Aurora University on Tuesday, and then Friday and Saturday they'll be at the Adrian Irish Hills Invite in Jackson, Michigan. Moving on to women's golf, they finished second place at the Carthage Shootout at the Border last weekend. Jordan Rue scored a 79 in both of her rounds, both being the best rounds for the Lady Dutch over the weekend. Friday and Saturday, they're going to be at the Olivet Kyle Campbell Invitational. Now, men's soccer, they won 1-0 Saturday against Lake Forest. The lone goal coming from Sam Albritton. The crowd there was strong on Friday night. I was there. It was a great atmosphere, good atmosphere for a soccer match there. And then Saturday, they were also in action. They lost 2-1 against Ohio Wesleyan. They'll play at Carthage at 5:30 on Friday and against St. Norbert at Carthage. Both games will be played in Kennesaw, Wisconsin. The women's soccer team started their season on the road at Milwaukee School of Engineering on Friday. They got the win in a 4-2 game. Goal scorers include Grace Bubin, Aaron Brophy, Allie Wittenbach, and Abby Preskop. On Saturday, the Lady Dutch continued their winning ways against Lake Forest in a 9-0 shutout. Goals that game were scored by Riley Dalton, Grace Bubin, Aaron Brophy, Hannah Landstrom, Allie Wittenbach, Audrey White, Anna Bremer, and 2 goals added by Abby Preskop. Finally, we'll end with football. It was the opening game for year 2 under head coach Peter Stuursma. The Dutch lost by a touchdown to Monmouth at Monmouth, 27-20. Both teams looked to be pretty evenly matched. Hope just had a lot of crucial mistakes in that game. Brandon Campbell, their returning 1,000-yard rusher from a year ago, fumbled 3 times, one of them inside the 5-yard line. That makes it tough to win. He had some costly mistakes in that game. Also, there were some mistakes in the kicking game. Didn't help their chances, missing 2 field goals and an extra point. This was going to be a tough game going in, though, against a very good team on the road. You got to give Monmouth a lot of credit. And last year, as many fans remember, they came up here and beat Hope by about 30 or 40 points last year in that opening game. So this was a good measuring stick for where Hope is going to be at. It's a could-have-won game, maybe even a should-have-won game, but there's no moral victories. They know they're not that far off from beating a team like Monmouth, kind of a power like that. And there's obviously some things they can improve upon that are right there, right in front of them. So that's a good sign if you're part of the coaching staff there for Hope. Flying Dutchman will take on Defiance at home on Saturday in the home opener at 1:30 p.m. Now, coming up, we're going to take a look back at Michigan and Michigan State, their games over the weekend. Both of them won, and so we'll take a look at and break that down. And then, of course, we got a lot to cover concerning the NFL. We're going to preview the Lions season. We'll go through their schedule, give a prediction on their record, and also the rest of the NFL. That's all coming up later on in the show. So stick with us. Quick break, and we'll be back talking about Michigan and Michigan State, some college football here on Sayf At The Plate. This is 89.9 WTHS Holland.
Just a young gun with a quick fuse. I was uptight, wanna let loose. I was dreaming of bigger things and wanna leave my old life behind.
Welcome back here on Sayf At The Plate Sports Talk. I'm your host, Clayton Sayfie. Right now we're going to bring in one of our special recurring guests, Fermin Duran. This segment going to talk about Michigan and Michigan State football over the weekend, both with their first game of the season. Michigan opened up down in Dallas, Texas, at the home of the Cowboys at AT&T Stadium against the 17th-ranked Florida Gators. So it was a 11th-ranked Michigan against 17th-ranked Florida. A very competitive game early on, but it really wasn't close towards the end, and we'll talk about this. Fermin, what were your just first observations following the game between Michigan and Florida down there in Dallas?
Michigan looked great. It's what was expected out of Jim Harbaugh. I mean, coming in, we thought they would get the victory, like we talked about last week, and they did. I thought Wilton Speight had a decent, fall-off to start the game, and then he obviously settled in. But I think bringing in O'Connor for a little bit, O'Corn, for a little bit of the second quarter, really sparked them up. So
yeah, and Jim Harbaugh talked about that following the game. I mean, if you didn't watch the game, Wilton Speight, the starting quarterback for Michigan, second-year starter, he threw 2 pick-sixes. After starting the game pretty hot, he threw 2 pick-sixes in a row, 2 consecutive passes for him, and it got Florida up 17-10 after Michigan was up 10-3. Looked like they were going to take control of the game. Florida wasn't able to move the ball at all. 2 pick-sixes, so Florida had the 7-point lead. Ended up being a 4-point lead, 17-13 going into the half. But towards the end of the half, Jim Harbaugh talked about it after the game that he put in John O'Corn. That was his plan, was to just settle down Wilton Speight, let him go into halftime and kind of regroup and retool and adapt going into that second half. And Speight definitely did respond pretty well following those 2 interceptions. It's not what you like to see out of a second-year starting quarterback, but he certainly couldn't have responded much better. His overall stats didn't look too good. He was 11 for 25, 181 yards with 1 touchdown in those 2 interceptions. But the quarterbacks on the other side for Florida were not much better. They were getting harassed all day by that Michigan defense, coached by Don Brown, defensive coordinator in his second year now. But a lot of new faces on that Michigan defense. What were your impressions from that other side of the ball, the Michigan defense?
I thought the defensive line did a great job of rushing the quarterback. Didn't give him enough time in the pocket to make throws, and that's obviously huge. I thought Devin Bush Jr. had a great game. What do you think?
Yeah, and he was the defensive player of the game as they, coming out of that game for Michigan. Devin Bush in his debut as a starter, one of the linebackers back there, he looked great. He had 2 sacks. Michigan was just harassing the quarterback all day. Malik Zaire and Philippe Franks, both of them never was able to get much rhythm. Throwing the ball looked like they were kind of disorganized there. And they really threw something at Florida that a lot of people didn't expect. They switched up their defensive front and switched to a 3-3-5 stack defense against the Gators that's really confused their offensive line and their quarterbacks, and they were bringing blitzes from all angles. They called Don Brown Dr. Blitz for a reason.
He loves to call the blitz. 75% on plays.
Yeah, and he's going to bring pressure, and that's what he does. And he showed that. Now, again, going back to that Michigan offense, Ty Isaac and Chris Evans and Karan Higdon, that's the three-headed monster there at running back. Ty Isaac had 11 carries for 114 yards, 10.4 yards per carry. He broke out a 36-yard run. We're starting to see those big plays from Michigan. The offensive line seemed to be more athletic than they were last year after they graduated a couple of older guys that really didn't have the careers that people thought they would have. You look at the new guys, Mike Onwenu, Nolan Aluzio on the right side there, and Pat Kugler played a great game as well. Talk about that Michigan running game and what you saw out of them.
I thought Ty Isaac had a great game. The older of the three, experienced running back, the USC transferred Ty Isaac. He did well. He played a great game. He was very composed in the backfield. He broke a few tackles, and he had the 36-yard run, which you talked about, which, in my opinion, got the offense going for Michigan.
Yeah, they showed that
huge play.
They definitely showed that big playability. So a big win for Michigan. They ended up winning 33-17. The defense added a touchdown there at the end with Chase Winovich forcing a fumble in the end zone. Noah Furbush picked that up there. So that was a good win for Michigan. Now moving on, Michigan State, they hosted Bowling Green at Spartan Stadium. Your first impressions from that game?
It looked like it was going to be a long season again for the Spartans. When LJ Scott fumbled the ball at I think it was the 5-yard line. And then it was returned, I think, 46 yards. And then Bowling Green ended up kicking a field goal. I was starting to get flashbacks. I was trying to think, okay, Michigan State might lose this game. I don't know. I had it in the back of my head. But they settled in. And Lewerke, as they talked about, he was very composed. Did fumble twice in the game, but he ended up having a great game. He threw for 250 yards. And he ran the ball well as well. So I think they're in good hands at the quarterback position. I think they're going to win a few more games more than last year. I think things can only go up from here for Michigan State in terms of, getting better. So
yeah, and after a shaky start in that game, I was really impressed with the way they were able to stay collected, stay cool and calm. And they didn't panic when they fumbled a couple times. Lewerke did have the 2 fumbles, like you said, and LJ Scott with another 2 fumbles. I'm not worried about that. I think LJ Scott is going to he's a great back. He's going to have a tremendous season for them. He's on all the watch lists and everything like that. Very good vision, power, and he's got a lot of elusiveness. And then Brian Lewerke, we talked about it last week. I'm really impressed with him. He did have those 2 fumbles, but I knew he would bounce back. He was 22 for 33, 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. QBR was up at 93.8. So I think if they can have that backfield with LJ Scott, and then you look at London and Holmes as the backup running backs as well, if you have that backfield and then you couple that with a good quarterback in Lewerke, they can make some plays. Now, it's a matter of the offensive line protecting, creating holes for the running backs, but the receiving core has got to make some plays as well. But it starts with the quarterback, starts with the running back. You can have, and Lewerke can run as well, so it adds that element.
He's a very elusive quarterback. My concern is the offensive line. Because, yes, they did look good, but, again, they did play Bowling Green. So it's not a huge test for them. It's going to be interesting to see how they stack up against bigger teams coming up. So.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we're going to be looking for. They play Notre Dame this week. Michigan will be playing Cincinnati, so we'll have a couple good games to watch for in state. Going to that Michigan State defense now, who, they played a really good game from start to finish. Bowling Green wasn't really able to get much going. They did get a touchdown late. They did get 3 points there in the first quarter. So Michigan State's defense held steady. I like a guy, Kenny Willix, a guy from Grand Rapids who's starting at defensive end, number 48. Take a look for him throughout the season. He did a good job. And then that Michigan State defense is going to be pretty solid, I think, this year. I think it's really just going to be, like you said, on that offensive line, if they do have enough weapons at receiver. And if the defense can stay steady, if they can hold up, they're going to win a few games. I have them going back to a bowl game after missing one last year. I think you have them at 5 wins. But, yeah, they're going to win some more games this year. Bowling Green, that was a good start after a shaky start to the game, but ended up being a good start to their season.
Here to stay, even when I'm gone. When I close my eyes through the passage of time, things never die.
Welcome back to Sayf At The Plate Sports Talk. I am your host, Clayton Sayfie. I'm alongside one of our special recurring guests, Fermin Duran. Time to break down the Detroit Lions here as their season will start on Sunday. And it's another season, a lot of optimism I've heard from fans and some people in the media, but we're going to break that down and talk about really what we do know about this Detroit Lions team. We do know that last year they struggled to win against good opponents, and they did string together a good amount of wins. They had 9 wins. A lot of them were close. A lot of them were in comeback fashion, which, it shows that Matthew Stafford's able to do that, and he's been able to do that throughout his entire career. He's a very good quarterback, one of the, top or second top tier quarterbacks. But you also take a look at the fact that they weren't able to beat those good teams, those teams that were over 500, playoff caliber teams. Last year was not a failure, but it certainly didn't show the best signs for future success. The fact that a lot of the teams they were beating weren't very good, and they were by small margins. So let's go on the offense. I think it should be decently improved, especially if you look at the return of Amir Abdullah, the running back. Last year they kind of were going running back by committee, and it really wasn't anything special. Guys like Zach Zenner and Washington didn't really show the things that Amir Abdullah can do. We've seen it so far in the preseason. Abdullah is a very good quarterback, but Stafford is the highlight of that offense. He's now the highest paid player in the NFL. So congratulations to him. He's making a lot of money.
Let the man get his money.
Yeah, absolutely. He deserves a lot of money for what he does. He's been a part of that rebuild that Detroit has seen in the last 8, 9, 10 years here.
Things are finally looking up.
They're looking up, but at the same time, there's some question marks. We'll talk about that. But now let's go to the offensive line. They're adding a guy in TJ Lang, the Eastern Michigan graduate, former Green Bay Packers offensive lineman, former Pro Bowler. So that's going to be an upgrade there. They do have Graham Glasgow coming back, the rookie from last year. He's now in his second year. He started to come into his own there at the towards the middle end of last season. So the offensive line should be pretty improved. There is an injury, though. Taylor Decker injured his shoulder. He's out indefinitely. That's going to be a big loss. But with the addition of free agent Greg Robinson, who we hear is doing really well at left tackle so far, which wasn't the case when he was down in Jacksonville for the beginning of his career.
Don't forget about Cyrus Quandro.
Yeah, and there's some guys there that are going to be able to have a good offensive line. I think it's going to be decently improved there, just like this entire offense will be. You take a look at the weapons they have. They don't have Anquan Bolden anymore, but we're looking at emerging guy Kenny Galladay. He impressed in his first couple preseason games. Jake getting a lot of passes from Jake Rudock, the backup quarterback. Also have Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, who are going to do a good job there as well. So what are your impressions for me on this and your expectations for this offense for the Lions?
I think they should be I think they could be the best offense in the NFC North. I think they
even better than the Packers?
I think they can be better than the Packers, and let me tell you why. I think Matthew Stafford, after getting paid all his money, highest paid player in the NFL right now, is going to come back. I'm not saying he's going to throw for 4,200 yards, 300 yards again, but he's going to have a great season. That being said, he added weapons. Kenny G, we're excited to see him. I think he can have a solid 600-700 yard season as a rookie. We can obviously see some improvement from that, but I think adding weapons, I think improving the offensive line, he's going to have more time in the pocket. I think I think we can have a great offense this year.
Yeah, I agree. The offense is going to be much improved. I think a lot of the games are going to come down to whether they can score more than the opponent, just because there's some question marks on that defense. So let's flip over to that defensive side of the ball. I think this is the cause for concern for the Lions. I think they're going to struggle again this year, and they're going to be the main reason for what I'm hoping it's not, but what I think is going to be a pretty disappointing season for the Lions. I think that they had a lot of needs they needed to meet in the offseason, whether it was through the draft or free agency, that they just didn't get done for one reason or the other from that front office. But I do like the interior defensive line. I think they're going to be one of the top groups on defense, led by Ashawn Robinson and Haloti Ngata. But that exterior line is going to be somewhat of a problem. They failed to meet the needs in the offseason of pass rushing defensive ends, which is obviously key in any NFL defense. When Ziggy Ansah returns, he's expected to be the only legitimate threat as a pass rusher from the DN spot. And then moving back a little bit to the linebacking core, should be pretty productive, especially later in the season. You got rookie Jarrad Davis from Florida. He's now in the mix. I think he's going to get better as the season progresses. They should be a faster linebacking core, a little more athletic after losing DeAndre Levy, which is a big loss, but they could get more athletic. That could be one of the pluses from that loss. Antoine Williams and Tahir Whitehead, you don't see too much talent out of them. So that's their starting linebacker core, which is going to be, I think, average to below average in the NFL. The secondary, they're going to look about the same as they did last season. Darius Slay is very good cornerback. He's one of the best in the NFC. His strength, on this defense, and he has a potential to shut down his side of the field. So that's going to be
Killebrew too.
Yeah, and that's going to be a strength for them. Nevin Lawson, he's going to be a liability when he's in there at that other corner spot. And then the safeties are about an average group. Tavon Wilson, Glover Quinn, for another position group that's looking pretty mediocre to start the season. You do like to have Darius Slay down there, back there. But other than that, this defense is just a few guys that are going to be able to make plays. I think the other guys are going to be serviceable. It's going to be, I'll just say, a pretty bad defense for Detroit. I think that's going to be their downfall. What do you think going into this season, looking at the defense and who they have back there?
No, I agree with everything you have to say, Clayton. I feel like they won't be good, but I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year. The defense was the absolute Achilles heel of this team last year. They were ranked 31st in the league in third down percentage, tied for 30th in sacks and 28th in takeaways. I mean, it was just not a good defense. That being said, I could see some improvement. I think we added some depth through the draft. I mean, it takes a long time for rookies to develop, but I can see Jarrad Davis, like you said, being an impact player in the years to come. I don't know if he'll step in and contribute right away the way we would want him to. There was a lot of question marks whether we should have drafted Reuben Foster instead of Jarrad Davis. But no, I think there will be some improvement. But still the Achilles heel of this team.
Yeah, that's that question mark. I think that's what the fans are talking about. The fans are worried about the journalists, the beat writers. They're talking about this defense and the fact that it may not hold up. It may not give that offense, which is going to be pretty prolific, a chance to win some games. Now, you do have Matthew Stafford, so even if they get down, they do have a chance to just kind of air it out and come back in some games, which is a plus that you have a guy that's done that. He's got experience doing that. So that's what you're going to have to hope for. But this defense is going to allow, I think, a lot of points. I think the offense is going to score a lot of points. So there's going to be some close games, some shootouts at the end. We'll see what happens. But there is a tough schedule. That is another element to this team. This schedule is tough.
Tougher than last year.
Yeah, very tough. And it's probably one of the toughest in the NFL. It's not going to be an easy road for the Lions if they want to make it back to the playoffs in consecutive years, which is something they haven't done in a long time since the 90s. But
it's been 20 years.
Yeah, and they start out at home against Arizona, which is going to be a very tough game to play. When you look at what Arizona has on defense, they have a solid offense. David Johnson, Carson Palmer, and what they're returning. So let's go down the Lions 2017 schedule. we'll predict the wins and losses. Fermin, you got some picks for these games or not?
Do you think they beat the Cardinals? I want to know your.
Yeah, so I'm going to go down the line here. I think they're going to lose to the Cardinals, and then they go at the Giants in week 2. I think that's going to be a loss. They play the defending NFC champions at home and the Falcons. I think that'll be a loss. Then they go at Minnesota. I think
win that game.
I think they're going to win that game. So there's 1-3 there through week 4. Then the Panthers come to town. I think they're going to lose that one. I think the Panthers are going to surprise some people this year after having a down year last year. So I have them at 1-4. And then at New Orleans, that'd be a tough one, 1-5.
Wow.
Steelers come to town. I have them at 1-6. They go at the Packers. I have Detroit at 1-7. Then a little bit of a win streak here. I have them winning their next 3 games. Cleveland at Chicago, and then Minnesota at home. So that brings them up to 4-7. And then at Baltimore, I think that's a team that's going to be a wild card team. I have them losing that one 4-8 there. At Tampa Bay, I have them losing that. They'll be 4-9. Then I do have them winning Chicago at home, and then at Cincinnati. So they'll be 6-9 there, and then losing to the Packers in the season finale. So I do have the Lions finishing 6-10, which would be a very disappointing season, especially with the expectations that are out there each and every year. But I do have them, a plus is that they're going to go 4-2, in my opinion, against the NFC North, which just shows how tough this schedule is. I mean, they're playing their division. I think they're going to do well in their division because I think this is a decent Lions team. But the schedule outside of the division is
brutal.
It is brutal. It's a brutal road that they have ahead of them. And a lot of those games are just really tough games. You can't even imagine playing that schedule. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, some of those teams might disappoint, and the Lions might catch them on an off game or something like that. So, there are some wins to be had out there, I think. But I think it's going to be under 500 season. They're going to miss the playoffs just because of that schedule and that defense. I think it's a bad combination.
I disagree. And let me tell you why. I don't think the Lions are a 6-10 football team. I think last year we won a lot of close games that came down to the wire. But we won a lot of them. And it comes a factor in when you stop talking about luck. And when you have a quarterback like Matthew Stafford towards the end of the games and close games, because there will be close games, I'm going to go with him every single time. He's a proven quarterback. He's a proven clutch quarterback. I don't think the Lions lose 10 games. I think they'll be either 8-8 or 9-7. I don't know if they'll return to the playoffs.
So they'll be in wild card contention.
I think they can be a wild card contending team. They won't win the NFC North. They might be a wild card team. I don't see them having a losing season. I don't.
Okay, that's fair. And a lot of people don't. I mean, a lot of people are pretty high on this team. You look at Matthew Stafford, like we said, the highest paid quarterback. You have Marvin Jones Jr., Kenny G, as you talked about, Kenny Galladay. You have Golden Tate. Amir Abdullah's coming back, an improved offensive line. There's a lot of improvements on this team. I think too much of them are on the offensive side of the ball, and not enough of them are on the defensive side of the ball. Defense wins championships. People talk about that. We saw it 2 years ago with the Broncos. I mean, if you have a very good offense, that's one thing, and that's great in the NFL to have a great quarterback. But defense is going to win you some games that you can't win by just outscoring the other team. We just don't see that where a team has a very bad defense and a great offense. We just don't see them winning and getting to the playoffs and making a run. I just don't see it. A lot of people disagree, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I hope the Lions do great this season. They start off their season on Sunday against Arizona at Ford Field. So we can't wait for that, for the season to kick off. Football is going to be officially back, NFL football, on Thursday with the Patriots and the Chiefs kicking off the season on Thursday Night Football. And then we're in full swing.
It's time, baby.
Yeah, college on Saturday, NFL on Sunday. It's officially full swing of football season, so couldn't be more excited about that. And it's shaping up to be a very exciting season for the Lions, for the entire NFL, and of course what we've been talking about and what we talked about last week, college football is going to be a heck of a season. So we're very excited about that. Can't wait to break that down throughout the fall. When we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about the entire NFL. We're going to go through the divisions, talk about those, get some predictions, and then also a Final Four in the NFL like we did last year with the AFC Championship, who's going to play in that, and also the NFC Championship, and then the Super Bowl champ, MVP prediction. So that's all coming up here on Sayf At The Plate Sports Talk. I'm your host, Clayton Sayfie, alongside Fermin Duran, our guest. So we'll break that down on the other side of the break. Thank you for listening. 89.9 WTHS Holland.
I just wanna take you away. Throw your hands up in the sky. Let's set this party on fire. Players, put your pinky rings up to the moon.
All right, welcome back to Sayf At The Plate Sports Talk here on 89.9 WTHS Holland. This is a commercial-free voice of Hope College. I'm Clayton Sayfie alongside Fermin Duran. Now we're going to move into our NFL preview. I just talked about the Lions and previewing their season, went through their schedule. Now we're going to go through each division and give some predictions on that. So starting off in the AFC East, it's going to be, I think, the Patriots again. I don't think
No-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a no-brainer. I think the Dolphins could compete for that wild card spot like they did a year ago.
Not without Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I think Jay Cutler is going to be very serviceable there. He's a good quarterback, and I think that they're going to be able to compete for the wild card spot. But other than that, it's going to be the Patriots hands down, and they're going to make another run. So let's move to the AFC North. The Steelers. Yeah, I have the Steelers there as well. I think the Ravens are another one of those teams that's a potential wild card team, but I think the Steelers are kind of they've separated themselves in the AFC North at least the last couple of years, and going into this year, I think with the weapons they have on offense, they should be improved and hopefully can give the Patriots a better shot if they make it to the AFC Championship against them. Now, AFC South, this is kind of interesting one. This is a toss-up between three teams, and let me give you the three teams that I think: the Colts, the Texans, and the Titans. And it's kind of a toss-up because a lot of those teams, all three of them have that capability. You look at Andrew Luck with the Colts. You look at the Texans and what they're able to do defensively. They're trying to work out some of the problems they have on offense, obviously. And then the Titans, who have Marcus Mariota, who's improving. They have those wide receivers, and they have those weapons on offense that they've been trying to accumulate over the last couple of years.
Great last year.
Yeah,
I thought he had a great season.
Exactly. That's why I do have the Titans actually winning that one, because I think they have a good enough defense and because their offense has enough weapons. And Mariota, like you said, is very, very ascending. He's one of those ascending players.
And that very underrated defensive line for the Titans, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have the Titans winning that one as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so we both have the Titans winning the AFC North, or AFC South, excuse me. Now over to the AFC West. I think it's going to be the Raiders with a healthy Derek Carr. And then you're adding Marshawn Lynch. You got Crabtree. All those guys over there, I think they're going to win it this year. The Chiefs did last year, but I think that was much to do with Derek Carr going down with that leg injury that ended his season. He wasn't able to finish off strong. They were in first place for a while. The Chiefs ended up taking it, but I think it's going to be the Raiders this year.
I have the Raiders, too. I think Carr's a very good quarterback. He got paid as well. No, I think they have to win it, man. It's their last season in Oakland. So we would love to see the Raiders take home the AFC West.
All right, and moving to the NFC East, starting there, I think it's going to be the Cowboys again. I think the Giants have a chance also to be that wild card team like they were a year ago, but I think it's going to be the Cowboys. Elliott's going to be coming back after week 6. You do have Dak Prescott in his second year, Dez Bryant, the weapons that they have on offense, and then the defense that was improved last year. I think they're going to just kind of go through their schedule again and win the NFC East pretty easily.
I'd have to kindly disagree to that. I think losing Zeke to start the year is going to be way too much for the Cowboys. They do have the best offensive line in football.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not worried about that, is because we don't really know how good, like Zeke Elliott's a very good running back, but we don't know how much better he is than these other guys because that offensive line was a perfect scenario for him to go into.
But he's still a great running back.
Yeah,
there's no denying the talent. He can make guys miss. He can catch the ball. I think the Giants win the NFC East. And let me tell you why. Very underrated defense. I love Jason Pierre-Paul. I think they also added Brandon Marshall on offense. Another weapon for Eli Manning here. He already has the best receiver in the NFL. Adds another weapon. The offense is going to be great again. The defense is already good. The Cowboys don't have Zeke to start the season. I think the stars are aligning. I think the NFC East is going to be won by the New York Giants.
Yeah, I think that they do have that window open, like you said, with the suspension, with the added pieces that they have. So they're going to be an improved team. I think the Giants are going to do well. I just think they're going to be a wild card team again. I think they're one of those locks to be in the playoffs, though, along with the Cowboys. So could go either way, but both those teams, I think, are going to be one of those strong teams in the NFC.
Both 10-win teams for sure, at least.
I think so.
Yeah.
NFC North, Lions division, obviously. The Packers, I have them winning that division once again. And then for that number 2 spot, which I, in my opinion, don't think that will be a playoff spot, winning a wild card spot would be, I think, either the Vikings or the Lions, and I think the Bears are going to be better than they were last year, but I think we'll finish at the bottom of that division.
And Trubisky wasn't even named the starter, if you saw that.
Yeah.
But no, I agree to that. I think the Packers are going to take this division easily. There will be competition. I think the Vikings are also a good football team. I don't, like you said, I don't agree. I don't think that there's going to be a playoff team coming out of the wild card spot of the North. So I do have the Packers winning. Who do you have the South?
NFC South, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning that one. And I mean, it could be a bold pick just because the Falcons won the entire NFC last year, made it to the Super Bowl, blew a 28-3 lead if you didn't hear. But I do have the Buccaneers winning that one. That's because they added Deshaun Jackson to their offense, because Jameis Winston is, in my opinion, going to be an MVP candidate. I think he's going to have a breakout season. We've already seen him kind of come on in the last couple of years, but I think this is going to be a very good Buccaneers team. And don't underrate their defense, led by Gerald McCoy back there. I think this is a really good Buccaneers team, but I do have the Falcons getting the wild card spot and making some noise.
Nothing else I could say. I agree to that 100%. I think Jameis Winston is going to win. I mean, I don't know if he's going to win the MVP. I would like him to, but he looked great last season.
Yeah, he's one of those new age kind of NFL quarterbacks. He's got a great arm. He's smart, and he can run a little bit. So I think he's going to be a very good player. He's going to be in MVP talks. He's going to lead this team to win a lot of games. And then finally, that last division is the NFC West, another competitive division, one of those toss-ups. I think the two teams I have a toss-up between are the Cardinals and Seahawks, but I do have the Seahawks winning the division in the NFC West. And the Cardinals competing for one of those wild card spots, but I do have the Seahawks winning the NFC West. Who do you have?
I have the Seahawks as well. I think the backfield is too deep. I think Russell Wilson is going to be healthy again coming next season. The defense is special. I mean, and like you said earlier in the show, defense is going to win you football games. If you have a secondary like they do, you're going to win games. Plain and simple. And Russell Wilson playing quarterback, they're going to win games. And I think they're going to win the NFC.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be competitive out there in the NFC West just because of how good that Cardinals defense is. So they're going to have a good team as well. But yeah, I do have the Seahawks as well. Now, let's move on. So Final Four, in honor of the college football, the whole Final Four thing. Let's go with who we have in our AFC Championship game and our NFC Championship game, and then we'll get the winner of that, the Super Bowl matchup, and then the Super Bowl champ. So, Fermin, go ahead with your Final Four in the NFL, AFC Championship game and NFC Championship game matchups.
I'm going to toss it back and ask you first. I want to hear what you want to say. Because I want to disagree with you.
Okay, that's interesting. All right, I'll go ahead. AFC, I have the Patriots against the Raiders in the AFC Championship game. In the NFC, I'm going to go Buccaneers against Cowboys. And then you go ahead and give your 4, and then I'll give my Super Bowl matchup here.
Okay, I think the Raiders. I can see the Raiders coming out of the AFC first of all, but no, I do have the Raiders playing. It's a toss up for me. It really is. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. Nothing for the NFC.
I mean,
No Patriots.
It's clear that the Patriots will win. I mean,
So Patriots against Raiders.
Raiders. Patriots win, make it to the Super Bowl. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the NFC, I don't know, Giants. I think the Giants will make the NFC Championship game. I think the Giants could play the Cowboys, and I could see the Cowboys winning it. So
Okay. So you have a Cowboys-Patriots
Patriots Super Bowl. I think that would be.
And think of the ratings for that, because both teams have huge fan bases, the entire Northeast.
It's a Super Bowl America wants to see.
Yeah, and you have America's team, quote unquote, with the Cowboys. So yeah, I have the Patriots against the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. I think that Jameis Winston is going to lead his team to the Super Bowl. I do have the Patriots winning it for a second straight year, 3 out of 4 years. Tom Brady's 6th Super Bowl with Bill Belichick in there as well. So
I think the 40-year-old quarterback will win his 6th Super Bowl.
Absolutely, 100%. Who do you think's going to win the Super Bowl? Who do you have?
I think the Cowboys take.
You do have the Cowboys?
Yep.
So you think that they might lose that division?
I think the wild card Cowboys, yes, will win the Super Bowl.
Which is plausible because they do have that suspension to Zeke Elliott early in the season.
Zeke will come back. He'll be old Zeke. I'm not worried about the Cowboys. I think they're finally going to go over the hump and quote-unquote America's team will win the Super Bowl.
All right. So I have the Patriots over the Buccaneers. You have the Cowboys over the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Good stuff there. Now let's talk about the MVP. I'm going to go with you. You got to go first on this one. Who's your MVP? And then give a couple guys that are going to be in that conversation but ultimately not win it. Because it seems like in the NFL every year there's like 3 to 5 guys that are pretty much up there and could have win it. But let's see. Let's get your guy.
I think a quarterback's going to win the MVP. I think that's pretty standard.
Shocker.
Yep. I could see Aaron Rodgers win the MVP. It depends how far and how deep the Packers go. I think Aaron Rodgers is poised to have another great season. It's going to be down, in my opinion, to Aaron Rodgers and Jameis Winston. I think I see famous Jameis coming out and having the best season of his career by far. There's a lot of high expectations, but he's ready. You can tell he's ready. You've seen it in training camp. You've heard about it on the news. Jameis is ready. He can come and win it.
So you do have him winning the MVP then?
Yes. I think Jameis Winston, and to everyone's disbelief, I think he wins the MVP.
Yeah, and it wouldn't completely shock me. I think it'd be a shocker, quote unquote, just in general, just because of how young he is and because of the type of quarterback he is. But I do have him in that conversation as well. I'm going to go with Derek Carr as my MVP. I think he's going to pick up where he left off before that leg injury. I think he's going to be the most valuable player. But then in the conversation, I have Tom Brady and Jameis Winston as well. 2 of those guys that'll be just a step below. Now, I mean, Brady probably should.
You don't see Rodgers in the conversation at all?
I think he'd be in the conversation. I'd add Aaron Rodgers to the conversation. I think here's the deal with Brady and Rodgers in terms of winning the MVP. Every year, everyone expects them to do what they do. Now, Rodgers did have that slow start last year and then led his team to a huge win streak. So he did have a reason to not be in that conversation last year, but Brady and Rodgers are always going to be there. They're always going to perform. So people don't put them in that conversation. So, yeah, I think it's going to be Carr, but I do have Winston and Brady in that conversation, and I'll add Rodgers to the list as well just because what he can do and what kind of talent he has. But that's my MVP. Derek Carr, you have Jameis Winston.
See, I mean, last year, if we were to be talking last year before Derek Carr went down, I would add him to that conversation. I'll question his mobility after that injury.
Yeah, and there wasn't
Every time
necessarily.
you suffer a broke, I mean, I don't know how good he'll be in the pocket anymore in terms of mobility. and that is really a big part of his game, his ability to move in the pocket and make good throws. But
yeah, I think he'll come back strong just because, it's an injury that you can overcome. It was obviously a really horrible injury, but I think he's going to come back. I think with the weapons he has on offense for Oakland, he's going to be the most valuable player.
Amari Cooper is going to have a great season.
Absolutely. He's a special talent. He's going to kind of emerge as one of those wide receivers in that top group. All right. So that was our MVPs and all of our predictions there, breaking down the NFL on our NFL preview show here on Sayf At The Plate Sports Talk. I want to thank you all for joining us. Again, follow us on Twitter at Sayf At The Plate. That's spelled SAYF. Excuse me. So please join us next week, Monday at 5, right here on WTHS 89.9. We're the commercial-free voice of Hope College. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Be sure to tune in. Thanks for listening to 89.9 WTHS Holland.